All right. Hello, everyone. It's Friday, the 27th of May, it's 2022. It's Children's Health Defence Weekly Friday Roundtable. And we have, I think, just lost our guest. There he is. He's back. Thank goodness for that. We have James Roguski. He's author and investigative journalist, and he is the man that everybody's talking about right now and who we are going to for advice. Now, we understand we have some breaking news around 15 minutes ago. I don't know if James can hear me, so we'll just wait 1 second. None of us here, Amy or Dr. Mumpa, know what this news is, but we do understand there is some breaking news. So if everyone's just stand by while we sort out our technical issues. Can you hear me, James? Not yet. This is wonderful live. This is what happens when you're live. You get all the excitement of things that go wrong. Let me know when you can hear me, James. Speak when you can.
Well, while he's working out his audio,
hi there. I hope you can hear me.
Thank you, James. Sorry about all that technical issues. But do tell us, what is this breaking news?
Okay. You can go to leavethewho.com and gain access to all of this. There's so much, but the short version of the long story is they, at the World Health Assembly, they just approved what many people don't even know is on the table. We've all been talking about amendments that the Biden administration submitted back in January. Okay. That is not what I'm talking about now, right? On Tuesday morning, there was published on the WHO website a brand new set of amendments. It would have changed Article 59, 55, 61, 62, and 63, which doesn't mean anything to your viewers. We'll go into those details. But there's a whole new pile of amendments that were submitted on Monday morning, which was the first day that the Assembly was supposed to be discussing this. And a whole lot of nations, many African nations, Iran, Brazil, Russia, others. I wasn't there, so I I wish I was a fly on the wall to see what was going on. It's quite the soap opera. They had an objection to, wait a minute, you're dropping a whole new document on us and you want us to discuss it and amend it and approve it this morning. And so all week long discussions have been going on. This morning, they published a revised version of the thing that they published on Tuesday. And that kind of gave us a clue that, they wouldn't do something like that unless they had every intention of approving that particular document, which about between 15 minutes and 30 minutes ago, that's exactly what they did. They don't vote if they can get away with it. They do all these backroom deals. And when a document comes before the assembly, they'll say something like, okay, we're talking about, and this is literally what it is, document A75, meaning the 75th Assembly, Conference 7, Revision 1. Does anybody have any objections? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, nobody objected. It has been approved. It's been adopted. And that's what they did about 30 minutes ago. And my analysis of what they passed was totally illegitimate, because even in the document, it says, well, any amendments have to have a 4-month advance notice. They have to be submitted 4 months before the assembly. So it literally says in the amendments that they just passed that you have to do it 4 months in advance, and they published it this morning. Okay, so it's on one level, it's hilarious because it's just so fraudulent. It's unbelievable. They did not address yet, and I don't think they're going to, the original amendments that we've been talking about, that Biden administration submitted. So I'm not going to be like the football player who's caught a pass and he's running for a touchdown and he's like on the 5-yard line and he spikes the ball and he thinks he got a touchdown, but he blew it, right? I'm not going to do that. I am not going to be that guy. And so until they actually close the session tomorrow, Saturday, and it's all said and done and all the dust is settled and all of the analysts have said, oh, yes, they only passed this or they adopted these few amendments that when you actually look at them, it's a big fat pile of nothing. So I'm not going to claim, 100% victory until they close the door and they all go away from Geneva, but it sure looks really good right now.
Can you not tell us a little bit more? I mean, everyone's just like, what?
It's mind-bogglingly complex. Okay. The amendments that we've been talking about, that I've been talking about since March 31st, when I published the article to begin with, appear to have been beaten into submission, and it didn't happen. Okay. And like I said, I'm not going to claim victory until they close the door and it's totally done, because they're sneaky. They'll do something between now and then. But what they did today, about a half an hour ago, is they didn't talk about those at all. They crafted a new document. If you go to leavethewho.com, those documents are there. And I recognize for most people, this is just a bunch of gobbledygook. The short version is, it appears that we've won. Now, until they close the doors Saturday and they're done, they can still do something sneaky. But it seems like really, really, really good news. Power to the people. It appears that many of the African nations, Iran, possibly Brazil, Russia, and some others, at some point they actually read what the amendments were, and they said, "What in the heck are you doing?" And so there have been many, many, many different, literally within the proceedings at the assembly, they talk about how the secretariat, which is a fancy word for secretary, how they arranged to have a room set aside so that some backroom dealing could go on. And the way they want this to happen is they want it to sound like there's unanimity, that everybody agrees, that it's all wonderful. So they go in the back room, they make whatever deals they make, and essentially they all applauded themselves at the end of it. Oh, we're so wonderful, we did such a great deal, and they approved a big pile of nothing. And I'm quite happy right now. It remains to be seen what when the dust settles and we look at this, Sunday morning and Monday morning. They did not get their way, as best I can tell at the moment.
That's amazing news, James, to hear that. And I know you've been at the forefront of this, reporting on it since you said in March. We've been following your Substack, and you and a few others really have been so ahead of this, which has been amazing for people to learn from. Earlier in the week, I had heard that 12 out of the 13 amendments were withdrawn, and then only Article 59 was remaining, which really had to do with the allowable timing that the WHO would either reject future amendments or take them into account. So is that still what's on the table, or did that also get scratched? And what you're talking about now is this breaking news is something entirely different, although it sounds like it's kind of meaningless that they are looking to adopt.
I'll try to take what you just said and do my best to clarify it. It remains to be seen, like I said, until Saturday when they totally close the session. But it's actually very entertaining. I mean, it really is like watching a soap opera once you understand the players and what's going on. And it appears that they just ended their third session of the day. They may be coming back to talk about some other topics, and there's always a chance that they sneak something in. So that's why I'm, hesitating to claim sheer and total victory. Most everything that you just said was absolutely correct, with a couple of tiny little nitpicky details. I've never said that they took 12 of the 13 off the table or retracted or withdrawn or whatever the word was. Here's what happened with that. There were rumors going around that last week they were having difficulty achieving consensus on the original Biden 13. It's not 13 amendments. It's amendments to 13 articles in the International Health Regulation. And so Zach Cox in the UK, who I spoke with about a month or so ago, in the United Kingdom, they have a procedure whereby a citizen can ask for a judicial review. So he did back on Tuesday of last week. And what is the United Kingdom doing here, right? Was essentially what he requested a judicial review regarding. He proposed that, I believe, on Tuesday of a week ago, or not this past week, but before. And on Thursday, I believe, he was rejected, that they would not do a review. And he stewed overnight, and I think he had to take some money out of his pocket and file an appeal. And so on Friday, the 20th, I think it was, he filed an appeal. And after the end of the day on Friday, before, that was when the World Council for Health and everyone was involved in Bath. That Friday, at the end of the day, he got a letter from the legal department at the Ministry of Health in the UK saying, oh, there's no reason for a judicial review because they're having problems achieving a consensus in the UK. And that phrase, problem reaching a consensus, got turned somehow by the media into they've been withdrawn. And so they never really were withdrawn because they've been talking about it. It's still on their website. The rumor prior to that, it wasn't that Zach's appeal caused that to happen. That had already happened. But Zach's appeal brought that into the public domain because the legal department of the Ministry of Health in the UK sent that letter to him and sent it to the court. And so that letter brought somewhat into the public domain that they were having problems over in Geneva. And then that got twisted by media because that's what the media does into, oh, it's been withdrawn. And, in effect, that was true, but it was actually still on the table. And it quite frankly still could be on the table. And that's why I'm not 100%, I'm like 99.9, but I'm not going to spike the football 5 yards outside the end zone and be one of those guys, right? When it's over, and we'll celebrate when it's over. And I hope that answers your question, I think. Okay.
So, James, if I could clarify, one of the things we've all been writing letters about and so concerned about is that this issue that the director of WHO could go to multiple sovereign nations and essentially declare a worldwide pandemic and dictate the way that should be handled, and that independent sovereign nations wouldn't have their own ability to apply local solutions. If I understand you correctly, you seem to be 99.9% sure that part of it is not going forth. Is that what I'm hearing?
Definitely going to get really detailed and granular with what you said. There's a lot of information that is in the media that's just cross-pollinating all kinds of ideas, okay? And so the portion of that I've been talking about is simply the Director General's ability to declare not a pandemic. I don't use that word. It's not a legally defined term. Their language is public health emergency of international concern, PHEIC, and it makes you smile. It's a fake, okay? He gets to declare fake if the nation where the issue is happening agrees. And so this whole thing has always been about a very simple point. Does the nation where the issue is happening have the final say? Okay. And it's only all I've ever been saying is it's about the declaration of a fake. Okay. It makes me smile every time I say it. It's not about how the response to that emergency declaration gets implemented. Okay. The amendments don't really have any power given to the Director General of the WHO. And now that they've been, just completely, it seems obliterated, it's all a moot point at this point. But there's been a lot of misunderstanding in terms of, the power of the WHO to step into this country or that country and demand things. It's always been sleight of hand, hypnosis, propaganda, programming. Oh, the WHO says you should do this, WHO says you should do that. What they were trying to get was actually a more powerful form of hypnosis and propaganda. Oh, we've declared that there's an emergency, right? A public health emergency of international concern, a public health emergency of regional concern, an intermediate health alert. It was the trigger. They wanted to have another trigger to declare an emergency on, and this is on my original article, Exhibit G. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. On the very last day of the Obama administration, the last full day, January 19th, 2017, they published a document in the Federal Register. The CDC put their final ruling on rules for quarantine for interstate and international travel, and they changed the meaning of words. And I wrote a whole article on it. It's called Newspeak on my Substack. Literally, it's out of 1984. They changed the definition of what would enable our Health and Human Services Secretary, Javier Becerra, who conveniently, and I hope he's doing well. I don't think he was at the event because he was diagnosed with COVID, tested positive for PCR test or whatever. The definition in the United States of a public health emergency is now by regulatory fiat as of January 19th, 2017, tied directly to the Director General of the WHO merely making a recommendation. He could say something like, there might be some bacteria in the sewer system in Cairo. And that would be justification for us to declare a public health emergency. And that's what makes all the money flow. That's what sets up the emergency use authorizations. And then the state governments declare an emergency, and the county and the city. And it's all illusion. But if that illusion is strong enough, government officials think that they have legal authority. And you guys have been dealing with that all in everything that you do. Government officials doing things that they're not supposed to do, but they do it anyways. And we know that they don't have the legal authority to do the things they're doing, but the hypnosis is so powerful, it's hard to get people to recognize that. And so this is a lot of smoke and mirrors. And, I'm very optimistic right now. Like I said, we'll wait until Sunday morning and the dust clears. And it's like, okay, what really, really happened this week? It looks like, wonderful news.
All right, so let's just clarify a few things, because I know that some viewers, well, not many, because our viewers will be saying, oh, James says we could potentially have won. Fantastic. So tomorrow night we'll all be celebrating. Everyone go home, go out, file your nails, do the thing. It's all done. It's all over. No, it's not all done. We have the World Economic Forum meeting at the same time, shenanigans going on over there. Eyes have always got to be kept on these organizations. James, can you just reiterate what you actually mean? We haven't won everything. Everything is over. They're not going to just lie down and say the people have won and it's done.
Absolutely. It's a tiny little skirmish in an ongoing, battle that, they're relentless. They never stop. I got a whole bunch of bad news that I saw that a bunch of the bills that are proposed in California passed the Senate or, passed this or the other house here. It's never ending, and they are relentless. But you do want to celebrate the fact that people power can be organized, and something that we were not supposed to know that this was going to happen. This was supposed to happen quietly. They presented these things in January. There was no media about these amendments. Ideally, they were going to pop up at the floor in the committee meeting, and everybody was just like, yeah, okay, whatever, I was supposed to vote for that. But the awareness has been raised, and that's the beauty of this, is when enough people are aware of all of this skullduggery, okay, and you shine the light on it, you can be victorious. And it's never ending vigilance. It's never going to be over. The Constitution doesn't protect our rights. We protect our rights, and the government is limited by the Constitution. And so please do continue with the types of things that you need people to pay attention to. But what this is a recognition that if we do pay attention and we do take action and we do spread the word and we are focused and organized, you can undo something that you didn't even know was going to happen.
Right. And I think it's important to remember that, the WHO has been up to these shenanigans for a very long time. We can just look back at their history with the swine flu, the way that was handled, and obviously everything they did during COVID. I mean, their efforts in suppressing, early and effective treatments that we knew that worked, and trying to, make everything out to be misinformation when the real truth, we know what the real truth is in terms of, what is effective, how harmful and dangerous the COVID vaccine is. So this is not new for them. I think we've had a groundswell of public support in pushing back on this and the opposition, which has been fantastic. And just as you said, it shows the power of the people, but we cannot take our eyes off of them. They have such a long history of this, and who knows what they're up to next. And just as Polly said, listening to some of the key speakers in Davos during the same week, hearing some of the most insidious comments come out of their mouth about, I think it was the Pfizer CEO talked about creating pills with microchips so that as people take it, they can actually track compliance of patient, taking the medication and being able to track them, and so many other statements that this is the agenda of the globalists, and they're not going to stop. This is their mission. They want to capitalize on this. They see the profit. They see the commoditization of human beings and people. So we cannot keep our eyes off of the WHO.
Oh, absolutely. And so there's so many issues, and part of what they do is they just overwhelm people. And a month or so ago, my girlfriend Marissa and I sat down and we said, look, we're in the middle of this. We're just going to put life on hold because this is important. And I recognize that people aren't necessarily able to do that. I've got to get back to my life. I've got to, do the things that I was doing. This all started, I was working in my garden, and Mother Nature has totally taken over my food forest. She's doing great, right? We got a big harvest of apricots that I was like, oh, wow, look at that. I didn't even pay any attention to them. And so, life takes over, and people have to go to work. They have to take care of their family. And part of the game is they overwhelm you with all this information. It's too much. And I think I was able to sift and sort and get the nuts, the little gems that people could run with. And the folks that have contacted me really have lifted my spirits, and it's been 100% fantastic. I mean, I'll do it right now, and everybody thinks I'm crazy, but it's been a blessing. Hey everybody, my phone number, write it down. It's 310-619-3055. If you want to get involved in this fight, give me a call and we'll keep going. But absolutely everybody who's contacted me, the people who don't care aren't watching your show, and the people who don't care won't pick up the phone and call. Don't call me now, or I'm on my phone, so don't do it right now. But they've been wonderful. I mean, it's just, and all over the world, not just the United States. I've gotten calls from Japan and Malaysia and Singapore and Uganda and Switzerland and everywhere. Ecuador, shout out to the folks in Ecuador. You guys really need to talk about what's going on in Ecuador. That's crazy. The spirit of people who recognize that they absolutely have to make a stand. I can't tell you how encouraging that has been. been wonderful.
So, James, welcome to our world. We have found the same thing because some of
Mhm.
us have been doing this work for a couple of decades now, and we've never met more amazing people who have such a sense of moral conviction. So, you're in a good crowd for sure. But I am ignorant about Ecuador. What is happening in Ecuador? Can you tell us about that?
Well, shout out to Shiloh and Rasmus and Kathleen. One of the very first videos that I posted was on a Monday morning. It's probably a month or 5 weeks ago. And in the middle of the day, I get a phone call from Ecuador. And, we had a conversation. And 6 hours later, the video was translated into Spanish because Ecuador, most people speak Spanish. And so Ecuador, the last information that I know of, they passed, the assembly enacted a law that may or may not have been signed yet. I don't have up-to-date information on whether or not it's been signed, that would enable the president and other cabinet officials to sign quote unquote treaties with non-government organizations, possibly even corporations, without the approval of the assembly. So the assembly kind of abdicated, and you just scratch your head and you go, wow, that sure looks like legalized corruption. Okay. And in addition to that, there's talk of something called Project Phoenix, which is, forced vaccination using the military. Now, I don't want to, be a scaremonger and fearmonger and all that kind of stuff. I'd encourage you to get connected with me so I can get you connected with them, and we can share all of this information. Um, you know, this is going on all around the world. I've been working with folks in Malaysia and Singapore and Uganda and South Africa. It's wonderful to see that people are standing up and realizing what's going on, and getting everybody connected is part of what I've been doing. Just before we got on here, it was kind of fun. We had some good news, and so I made a phone call, and then I was talking to somebody that I've been working with, and made a 3-way call, made a 4-way call, made a 5-way call, and everybody's talking about this. Part of it is not trying to convince people who do not want to be convinced. Part of it is organizing the people who, well, actually, a huge part of it is making connections and organizing people who want to work together. If you're spending all your time trying to convince somebody who just absolutely does not want to be convinced, you could be working with people who are already there. And that organizing is different than trying to convince somebody who just really does not want to know any different. And so, I've been doing this since I moved to California in 1996. I wrote a book a half a dozen years, well, more than a dozen years ago, rather. Your Doctor is a Liar, right? Now, there's a few exceptions, but that book is more true now than it was a dozen years ago. And I've always given it away because if you're speaking the truth, it resonates with people who want to hear the truth, but not everybody's ready to hear the truth. And so you work with the people who reach out to you and they go, hey, what is it you're doing? I really like that. Let's work together. And that is a whole lot better use of everyone's time than, in my opinion, than trying to convince people who just don't want to be convinced. Now, with those people, all I do is I ask them a question. I go, oh, you're, and I won't even get into something that's really sticky. I'll just say, look, you've made a decision to do something. Oh, wow. I've got 2 ears. Let me be quiet. You tell me what you use in terms of science and facts and studies. Why did you make that decision? Please, you convince me, right? Why is it that you're doing something that I have chosen not to do? And more often than not, they'll say something like, well, so and so said to. And you realize that that's hearsay. I heard somebody say. And the beauty with what I've been doing with this thing with the IHR and the amendments is I just started with evidence. I just started with facts, shined a light on it, and said, look at the facts. Seems obvious to me. It doesn't matter what I have to say. I didn't hear somebody say something. I dug up the facts. And so the best way I think to approach somebody who's doing something that maybe you think is not what you would do for yourself is ask them to convince you about their choice. And more often than not, they've got nothing. They've just done it because of propaganda. And you don't have to confront them, which causes them to become defensive. You go, hey, I'd like to come over to your point of view. Can you send me the facts that you're using to defend your point of view? I'd like to know what they are. And 9 times out of 10, they got nothing. And it's a much more, it leads to a more friendly conversation. You're not telling them what to do. You're using 2 ears as opposed to 1 mouth, and you listen to what they have to say. And anybody who's got facts to convince me that I'm wrong about something, you will be my best buddy. Teach me something. Tell me that I'm wrong. That'd be great. And if you have that attitude, you don't have to have a confrontation. You can learn.
All right. Well, look, thanks for that. I'm sorry to be a Debbie Downer, but I just want to just go back to this a second, because we've called this show Hidden Agenda. Now, what the good news is if you're right and we've won that little thread, then that should show everybody around the world these people are not as big as they think they are, or they want you to think. We, the people, are way more powerful than them. So that I know for sure. But what is the hidden agenda? Because they're not going to give up. They're going to come back. They messed up. We won. They messed up. We'll come back and do it a different way. What is the goal here? What's the hidden agenda? Because there's so much confusion about this. From your opinion.
Sure. The hidden agenda is rarely hidden, actually. They usually just tell you right up front. And so in session 3, if anybody goes and watches what happened, because it is very entertaining, session 3, about 30 minutes in, the American, I can't remember his name, so I'm not going to butcher it, but there was the co-chairs of the working group for pandemic response gave a 10 or 20 minute presentation before the assembly. And they said, well, we've been having trouble reaching an agreement, and they are going to change the name of the working group for pandemic response to the working group for the international health regulations. And they're planning to meet that group on November 15th. And they will be taking suggestions from, proposals from all the nations around the world to amend the international health regulations, which is what this was all been about to begin with. The deadline for submitting those things will be September 30th, and then they will meet November 15th to, here we go again, okay, same type of stuff. Now, maybe in the light of day, maybe some good recommendations or proposals for changing the international health regulations will come to pass, but I doubt it. Okay, so we have to be eternally vigilant. So, essentially the bully got punched in the nose. He's going back, licking his wounds, and he's planning to come back again in November. And so that's not hidden. That's what they said they're going to do. And so, I'm not going through this again, right? My whole attitude at this point is leave the WHO, leave the WHO.com, hashtag leave the WHO. It's a voluntary organization, a voluntary association, and it's very much like being in an abusive relationship where you can't reason with the person. They just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And so we can leave anytime. I doubt that the Biden administration will do that. And so what I'm going to be doing, all I can say is what I'm going to be doing. And what I'm going to be doing is exposing the WHO for who they are. This has been a wonderful, awareness of what's going on. And there are many nations in Africa, many nations around the world who saw firsthand, at this assembly, that the power structure of the United States, United Kingdom, the European Union, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, are trying to take even more advantage of nations that have less wealth and have more pigment in their skin. And so as countries wake up to what the WHO is really all about, we need to build things like the World Council for Health and Children's Health Defense and all of the many organizations that are, going to miss out on a whole bunch of folks. We need to build an alternative so that when people see that the Titanic that is the World Health Organization ran into an iceberg this weekend and last weekend, they're going down slowly, but at some point people will go, well, wait a minute, they really suck. What's going on with these other organizations? Let's put our faith in them. Let's put our effort behind them. Let's put our money and our time and our thought, and you create a better alternative. At some point, people will look at the choice and they'll go, they can just wither away on the vine because they're just not worth our time, effort, and energy. We're putting our energy into building a better way. To steal a slogan from the World Council for Health, there is a better way, and that's what we need to focus on now. We punched them in the eye. They're bruised and battered. They'll be coming back again, but by November, we're going to be much bigger, and they're going to be getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker.
Right. And I think we tried to get out of this, right? I mean, at one point, Trump had us divesting from the WHO. I'd love on that. And right now, currently, there's a bill, HR 419, that is trying to get us to, remove taxpayer dollars and funding into the WHO, which is picking up a lot of co-sponsors, a lot of steam. So I don't know if you want to give your perspective on how we can get out of this. Do we really see our way out? I am very, doubtful it will happen under a Biden administration, but we're trying to make that happen.
Well, a lot of Congress people have sent letters to their constituents because as part of what I've been doing, it was like, hey, write your Congress people just to, push back however you can push back. Not that they were going to Geneva to vote on these amendments or anything like that, but approximately 100,000 people came through my site to speak to their senators and congressmen. And so, I don't track that, I don't take people's information or anything like that. And so maybe they didn't all actually go and do that. But, even if half of them did, then each senator got like 500 constituents reaching out to them on average. And I absolutely know from the feedback that people have given me that most of the Congress people and senators are like, we don't know what you're talking about. This is, we don't know. And then what happened was absolutely I'm enraged by it. I'm a calm, cool, collected guy, but deep down inside, it really got me upset. The dynamic of what happened was thousands of people reached out to their congressmen, women, and senators, and they said, look, we're learning about what's going on in Geneva. We don't like it. What are you going to do about it? Okay. Now, I remember being in 10th grade government class, learning how we have a representative government and our representatives are supposed to listen to the constituents and, pass legislation and whatever. So in Louisiana, there's, I think, 14 legislators in their assembly put forth a resolution. Now, it's not going to change anything, but it's a flag, that they're planting saying, well, we resolved that we don't want anything to do with this. This isn't what we want. And at the very least, they did their job. They're supposed to represent their constituents. Their constituents let them know about this, and they did a little tiny something. And it's, more than most have done. What the Congress people, and especially Republican congressmen, and I have written an article about this, it's on my Substack, they didn't know what was going on, right? They're like, we have no idea. What are you talking about? What is this? Never heard of it. And then a couple of days later, they came back with a form letter that literally said, oh, we are absolutely in support of this. And you, the constituent, you just don't understand. Okay. This is something that the Trump administration started, that they literally said in their documentation, and it's true, these negotiations began during the Trump administration. Obviously, he was out of office. The Biden administration bears full responsibility for submitting them. But the Republican congressman who sent these letters to their constituents said, we're in support of this. We're in support. They clearly stated beyond any shadow of a doubt that they knew that the amendments that Biden submitted would take control away from each nation and give it to this one person, the Director General of the World Health Organization. And I'm just astonished that they could be so blind to the fact that they admitted in writing that they were willing to break their oath of office to defend the Constitution, because they clearly stated they wanted to take this power away from each country and give it to one, worldwide dictator. And it's astonishing. So, going into this election season, every congressperson, there's a few exceptions. I do have a naughty list, and there is a short, nice list of people who have stepped up to the plate and been on the right side as far as I'm concerned about this. But wow, this election season, did you support this? Did you say anything against it? This is a big issue, and it's not as big of an issue as it may have been had these things passed and been approved or whatever. But it's really going to be a very interesting 6 months before the November midterm.
James, Children's Health Defense has been live streaming the World Health Assembly, and some of us who have tried to watch it have felt like there wasn't really much going on, that there were a lot of people reading canned speeches. As you've analyzed their work, is there anything substantive that's actually been accomplished during the current week that you can point us to?
Well, part of the problem is, and it's interesting. You know how you get accustomed to something and you think everything is like what you're accustomed to? Their whole situation is very different. They had a plenary session, and they have a committee A and a committee B, and then they also had roundtable discussions. Okay, so there's like 4 things going on at the same time, and so I haven't watched all of it because there just isn't enough time in the day, and so I was very focused on what they refer to as Committee A. Okay, and so unlike our Congress, where there's subcommittee meetings, which don't really hold any, voting capacity, the World Health Organization's assembly is unusual in that they have 3 sessions going on, and each nation has 3 official delegates. So there's really 3 things to watch all at the same time. And the only thing I've been watching is Committee A, because that's where the action was with the amendments. All right. The plenary, I haven't watched the darn thing because I haven't been able to clone myself to be 3 different people. Okay. And Committee B didn't have too much going on. And then there's these roundtable discussions. So it's impossible for anybody to have watched everything. And I certainly have not watched everything. And so what I witnessed was that there's absolutely no discussion whatsoever. There was nothing written in the amendments at all about essential medicines, nutrition, early treatments, alternative treatments. There was no mea culpa or post-mortem analysis of, hey, how come Dr. McCullough and Dr. Zelenko and Dr. Urso and Dr. Corey and Dr. Cole and all the other doctors that I'm not mentioning, why weren't they presenting something? Why was Gavi and all of the other? There's a chart that I came across that I have on leavethewho.com. There's 193 nations, because I think possibly one of them hasn't paid their dues. Okay, and there was 250 or so quote unquote civil society organizations. And so the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Gavi, and all of these other organizations, they got time to speak. Okay, and so the next thing coming, just FYI, this is, I hope I can enunciate clearly enough. There's a website, INB.WHO.INT. That's the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body, INB.WHO, World Health Organization, .INT for international. If you go there, please, everybody, pay very, very close attention, because that is the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body's website. They're the ones who are going to be now talking about the quote unquote proposed pandemic treaty. They have not yet opened up the ability to put your name in, but they soon will, probably very short window. On June 16th and June 17th, there will be the ability to give an audio-visual presentation and the ability to write a very short written submission for everyone to voice their opinion about the proposed pandemic treaty, which I wrote an enormous article about, and it's just an abomination. It's everything under the sun that you could possibly imagine. So stay tuned for, in the next week or so, they'll be changing that page, inb.who.int, to take submissions from the public, and we're just going to absolutely bury them this time. We're all aware of it. We know it's coming. They're going to hear what we all have to say about their negotiations. They're shooting for, at the end of July, their intergovernmental negotiating body will hopefully, according to them, for the first time, present a draft of their proposed pandemic treaty. Anybody who's been talking about the pandemic treaty up until this point has been unfortunately misrepresenting dozens and dozens and dozens of proposals that are, groups with a lot of money saying what they want. The first draft is scheduled to be submitted August 1st. And so June 16th, June 17th, prepare your statements and prepare your 2-minute presentations to give the WHO, your opinion. So that's in the next 2 weeks or so. That's the next focus, I believe.
James, I want to ask you a question. There are people, many people, not our viewers, but many people who just go, oh, God, I can't be bothered with all this. How bad can it get? What can the World Health Organization do anyway? What would you say to them? Because we need all hands on deck and people to understand, how bad can it get, James? How bad could it be if we do nothing?
I would just say, if you don't have an opinion, if you don't care to speak your mind, then, democracy is, we don't live in a democracy, we live in a republic. The Constitution is, we gave up a certain amount of rights to form a government, and we, the people, have to defend our rights. And if you don't say anything, well, you're going to get what somebody else decides you're going to get. And those same people will certainly have an opinion, right? And given the opportunity to voice one's opinion, you ought to take it, because if you don't say anything, well, then you got nobody to blame but yourself. And so I think this, if what I believe has just happened has happened, it's abject proof that the power of the people, when it's properly organized and focused, is amazing, right? And obviously there will be people who say, whatever, negative, I don't count you as a Debbie Downer. You're like being, okay, look, it's complicated. But when you actually get focused on, right now, probably the next focus is going to be, hey, people, somewhere between now and June 16th, there's going to be an opportunity for you to write whatever it is you care to say, and possibly, organizations like Children's Health Defense will be able to submit their application to speak. I got to speak at the last one, and I'm just a guy, right? I mean, I'm not a big organization. I'm just one person, but I filled out the form. I told them I wanted to speak, and they were able, they didn't have that many people. It was really very entertaining. I got to give my 2 minutes, and the 5 or 6 people that followed after me, they made it so confusing that people didn't show up. And for the 5 or 10 minutes after I spoke, it was pretty funny. they showed a still video shot of my dining room because nobody wanted to follow what I had to say, and it really made me smile. I didn't even realize it was happening. Afterwards, when I saw the video, to their credit, they published it. It's still up on their site. If you go to their fourth session, I was the second speaker, and the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh person after me, they were no show, right? So a shout out to a different topic, interestofjustice.org. They found out about a listening session with the Health and Human Services on Friday the 13th, and they submitted their interest, to be a speaker, and they were one of very few people who got to speak. They actually got to speak 9 times in a 2-hour listening session. So, if you want to sit on your butt and do nothing, that's your right. If your life is so busy that you're just barely treading water, man, I feel for you. I know how that is. But if you have the time, energy, and inclination to participate, we're just trying to organize the next step of this, which will be coming soon, as soon as they let everyone know how it's going to be. And it's all going to be on that website, inb.who.int. We'll certainly keep you apprised of that. Organizations like CHD and World Council for Health and others certainly will put forth their organization's view, but individual people will be able to say what they have to say. And, power to the people, power in numbers, participate. If you don't participate, you got nobody to blame but yourself.
I don't think there could be a more important time as we approach Memorial Day weekend and we think about, what our heroes and our veterans and people who have served before us for these very fundamental rights. People have literally put their lives on the line in order to uphold our Constitution, our bodily autonomy, our own nation sovereignty, our individual sovereignty, all of our rights. So this is such a big opportunity to give that public feedback. We cannot let it pass us by. I think back in April, there weren't quite as many people aware of this to give public comments then. And although many did, they also gave very strict parameters in terms of how you could give commentary. And so, now it's really important that people are willing and able and ready to participate on June 16th and 17th. So stay tuned for more information from us here at Children's Health Defense. We'll have action alerts on that. Please keep following James Roguski and his Substack. James, you've done a phenomenal job of getting all of this information out there. So huge shout out and kudos to you for all of your great sleuthing and reporting on this since back in March and really galvanizing the people to take this action. And we will hopefully see over the next few days, some good news come forth in this, but I know we can't count our chickens just yet. So we just want to thank you so much, James, for coming on and being here with us today. Also want to just make some announcements. Tomorrow, we're actually going to be having a live press conference straight from Geneva, Switzerland here at CHD TV. So you'll want to tune in for that. It's going to start at 9 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Central time, 6 a.m. Pacific time. So it's going to be all about democracy and the threat of the WHO's centralization of power. So this is in alliance with the International Alliance for Justice and Democracy. So this will be live tomorrow here at CHD. You're not going to want to miss this. You're going to hear from all of the experts and people on the ground to bring full transparency to what's been happening there in Geneva. So that's 9 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Also, we have Dr. Tony show on tomorrow. You're not going to want to miss that. That will be at 3 p.m. Eastern time with Dr. Peter McCullough. So they're going to be discussing preventing hospitalization and death while fighting the pharmaceutical industrial complex. So you don't want to miss that. Dr. Peter McCullough will be great on Dr. Tony. And we just want to wish everyone a wonderful, safe, happy Memorial Day. And let's all remember why we all do what we do, why we're fighting every day, why we're passionate, putting all of our energy and time into defending our rights and getting the truth out there. Let's remember that this Memorial Day more than ever. Have a great, safe, happy Memorial Day, and we'll see you back here next week. Thank you, everyone.
Unfortunately, there has been a small minority of groups making misleading statements and purposefully distorting facts. I want to be crystal clear. WHO's agenda is public, open, and transparent.
We have to believe that it's possible to stop a localized outbreak becoming a raging global pandemic. And that means better surveillance, more transparency, frankly, by all member states, If they think something's happened, it's got to be reported. And the WHO needs the power to be on the site with whatever teams need to be deployed. It needs to be able to publish the information it has rather than beg countries for permission to do it. It's got to be able to take a precautionary approach in running up a flag. And it's got to be able to declare an emergency without being kneecapped by an emergency committee. These are basic things that need to be dealt with in a review of the international health regulations. Otherwise, we will lose weeks again next time something happens.
How many vaccinations do we need in the future?
It's a very good question. And I think, first of all, I think we will need vaccinations in the future, but also I'm concerned that the compliance of the population with the recommendations of the experts will not be very high. More people did the first dose, and then lesser did the second, and then lesser will do the third and the fourth. And so for that reason, we need to find a solution that makes it easy for people to get. And I think this solution, it is the number one priority is to have a vaccine that lasts a year. So once people know that it is once a year, I do it every autumn, for example, fall, I think that will improve the amount of people that are getting the vaccine.
And I think there are also certain attempts to combine it with a anti-flu vaccine.
That is another very good way to make it, to improve compliance. If someone thinks that I'm going to go to the doctor or to the pharmacy, but at least with one shot I will get two, flu and that also will increase the number. So these are the things. It's very difficult to improve the efficacy right now. It's very, very high. But what you can improve it is how convenient it is and how can last the efficacy for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
You vaccinate not only for yourself, you vaccinate also to protect society, and particularly to protect those that you love the most, because they are the ones that you are together.
The vaccines have saved millions of lives, but they don't have much in the way of duration, and they're not good at infection blocking.
I think we were both targets of the anti-vaccine movements and conspiracy people. No, you were also target.
I read one day that was arrested by FBI.
Yeah, same happened to me.
And there are pictures of me and FBI officers. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I never said. The surprising thing it is that the same publication, I found out because I had published, the previous one that was arrested was the Pope by FBI. So, ridiculous.
Yeah, so we are good company.
At least I was in good company.
Yeah.